Hey my dudes, let's do a commentary version of the restoration video. This is a Peshkab or something like that. It's a Persian style fighting knife with a curved tip made to dig through the chinks of armor, and it's in pretty bad shape. The aluminum handle, I think, pretty well dates this to the earliest 1950s, maybe the very earliest. It's rusted out. I think the handle was covered something, and it came for 30 bucks with this other knife, which I deemed unrestorable essentially because the tang was too thin to peel the handles off and attach a new tang. It was just not going to happen, sort of beyond restoration, I guess. There's a couple clues that the knife is handmade. One is it's pretty shoddy. It's like crooked and it's got a bunch of dings and marks in it. The spine isn't ground flat on either side. It's forged pretty rough. Okay, this is not something that was cast or anything like that. And there'll be some other clues here in a minute. Those pins in the handle were very peened very shoddily. They were not well formed or uniform. Here's another clue: the hardness. It's about 60 HRC, believe it or not. It's got a pretty quality heat treatment, and then the tang is differentially hardened. It wasn't hardened. The HRC here turned out to be, I think, around 40 or so. So that's just sort of another clue that this didn't really go through a machine shop type of thing, or wasn't produced in mass. I think, if it was made in Pakistan or even India, then there's that curved tip, which is just sort of a giveaway as to the quality. And that curved tip is original. That didn't happen after the fact. I mean, it's a hardened blade, and the tip is curved. So that was during quench, and they just got lazy and didn't fix it or something. So in India or Pakistan, these were probably made in sort of the little Meister model that you saw in England, where, back in the 1800s, where a knife went from house to house or shop to shop, and they'd each do something that they were equipped to do. Like they'd do handles here and sharpening here and blade shaping here, and the knife would just make its way around to these little shops. And even today, that's much the way I believe a lot of these knives are made in Pakistan, for example. So it's in pretty rough shape. It hasn't been cared for at all. There's lots of cracks and dings and divots in the steel, which again is fairly hard. It was over 60 HRC. It's probably tempered. I'm guessing it was tempered if they bothered to soften the spine. I quenched it in Texaco A, which is a slow oil. It's an 8-second oil. It's actually slower than that. It's 8 seconds on the test media. At any rate, had that not worked, I would have gone to vegetable oil, then Parks 50, then water, then brine, and then just speed up the quench until I got something to make it hard. Despite the tip being curved, even there were other issues with the edge besides that. The tip was still, or the edge still was not straight. So I've had to do a lot of straightening here even after the edge was brought true. So is this like a quality antique? No, I mean, obviously not. It's not like this is a formal restoration for a museum piece. So I've already had some comments on YouTube that this was some antique knife, which is garbage. It was hastily made out of decent steel with some handmade techniques. There was some care given to it, but ultimately it was probably a throwaway because of the tip and other things. So this is going to be a two-part guard. Obviously there's going to be the guard portion that sits flush with the knife, and then I'm going to do a little spacer underneath it, like that. This is G10, obviously. Glue up the spacers. I'll drill everything out and put some pins in there to keep everything aligned while I shape everything independently. They'll always index the same to each other, and I'll have a good idea of how to achieve symmetry and keep the pieces separate. That glue didn't last long, but it lasted long enough to index one side of the spacer to the guard and I can put a pin in that and then drill the other side. So this is marked as Kingwood, and it sort of looks like Kingwood, but it's awfully sort of purplish. I don't remember the last couple times I used Kingwood getting that sort of purple. Looks like Purple Heart. One of the viewers asked if it was Purple Heart, and you know, gosh, I don't know. Maybe it's mismarked. So this is tough, drilling these holes so everything is perpendicular and flush and the holes line up on the wood with the tang. If I get it wrong, though, I can add more spacers to get the spacing correct, you understand? So it can move in and out as needed to get the holes exactly where they need to be. Time to shape the guard. I sort of regret not making a longer guard with a bigger nose on it that comes out a little further. I think that might have looked a little cooler, but it's okay. I really sort of like the shape of the original handle. It's not very it's very Western, so it's, you know, not very consistent with the origin of the knife. But you know, it's cool. I still liked it. It's too bad I cracked it. There is some space within the handle between the side of the wood and the tang of the knife, which is why when I over tightened the Corby bolts, it just pulled the wood and cracked it. You know, over tightened. I could have used pins, just straight solid pins instead of Corby bolts, but I didn't have the right size pin material. It was really like 3/16, and I just didn't have that laying around. So I countersunk it went with Corby bolts, the inner diameter of which is 3/16. So it fit the tang perfectly. I just had to make it fit the wood. Not something you would really, it doesn't, you know, the Corby bolts are supposed to cinch two halves of tangs together, or two halves of a handle together, pin them to the tang, or, you know, a through tang or full tang, not really a through tang or rat tail tang knife. It's really not, really probably aren't used in this setting very often. Like I said, if I had the right size pins, I would have just used solid pins. So heartbreaking fracture here, but you know, I got another handle made, and I got the experience of, you know, shaping more wood. So we got it done. I sort of like it, you know, like I said, it's a little bit like polishing a turd, and no one's going to really use this for anything, but, you know, it's fun. I got to learn some stuff. You guys have a good one.